Okay, so now that I've just got through finished pressing, just turning under those raw edges just a small little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold wrong sides together like this and match those folded edges, and then pin that in place all the way down the strap. So make sure those raw edges, the stuff that you pressed, make sure they're tucked under, and pin those in place. Pin. And then pin this one here. All right, and then I went ahead and pinned before I started the video, so just to save some time. So look, so now I have the whole thing pinned, and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sew very close to this folded edge that's open, because if you get too far into, if you sew too far in, then your elastic isn't going to fit. So let me show you how much space you have. So if I put this elastic into this casing like this, you can see how much room I have to play with. I center that. So what I'm going to do is put this in the machine like this, and I think my my guide, let me just double check this here. Yeah, that'll work. So the inside of the U, which we use a lot as our guide, so the inside part right here is going to be your guide. You're going to put the edge of the folded side, the side that's open, is going to be right on the inside of that U. Now, your fabric might want to get caught and stay in one place. So what I typically do is I hold these, I call it the tail. So I hold the tail, and as I start to sew, I gently pull, not hard, but just if it looks like it's starting to stay in one place and it's not wanting to sew, then I gently pull this to help it through. So I take a couple of stitches, back stitch, and then, so now I don't need to pull that anymore. And as you sew, you want to make sure that those folded edges are tucked in, and you'll notice how I'm holding the fabric. I'm just trying to hold this so it stays in place. And sew up to your pins. And then I'm rechecking to make sure that my edges are together, and that my edges are together, and those folded edges are still tucked under. So here's my strap. And then now let's check and see how I did with the elastic. So yeah, I've got lots of room to be able to feed that through. And, all right, so we have that. And then now what you're gonna do is you're gonna feed it through this casing. So you're gonna get your safety pin here. Put the pin a little ways down the elastic so it doesn't pull out on you. And then you're going to just feed this through. So I'm like crunch, crunch, crunch. And when I'm pulling, I'm always holding that clasp as I pull. Crunch, 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 and pull. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Hold the clasp and pull. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Hold the clasp and pull. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Hold the clasp. Okay, now you notice I'm getting close to the elastic is getting close into the casing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull it just a tad more, just a little bit. Okay, there we go. So if it goes a little too far in, just pull that back just a little bit. So it's going to be like the edge of the elastic is on the edge of the fabric there. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew that in place. Okay. So now it won't pull through because it's been sewn to the casing as well. The elastic's been sewn to the casing. So now I can continue pushing the safety pin through casing. Come at the other end. So I'll unpin it, put that back there. And then now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make sure the elastic is right level with the end of the casing. And I'm going to sew that in place now. So I've got this all done now. So I'm now ready to put the mask together. All right. Now what we're going to do is, if you notice these two notches right here, that's going to be the placement for the strap here. So remember, we put right sides together. You can't tell with this fabric because it's hard to tell what's the right and wrong, but on your fabric you'll be able to tell. So right sides together, so I'm going to open that up and I'm going to put this strap right centered right where that little clipping is, and I'm going to pin that in place like that, and then make sure the strap isn't twisted. And I'm going to do the other side and match that cut right there to the center there and pin that in place. And I kind of just put that in the center like that. Now you're going to put right sides together. Right sides together and match this notch with that. I'm going to take that out and I'm going to repin it here. I do the same thing over here. Match this notch with the other notch. Take that pin out and repin it. And then from here to here, that's a really big hole to leave open. So what I'm going to do is we'll do a 3-finger hole right here at the center. This is the top of the mask. So I'm going to put 2 double pins there to let me know that this is where I'm going to start and stop sewing. Here. And then I think maybe I'll put one here. Here. And I'm going to tuck that strap inside there. And where this notch is, I'm matching that notch, and I'm going to pin there. And then pin over here. So now remember, right sides together. You put the strap inside, and we leave a 3-finger hole here up at the top. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew 3/8 is our seam allowance. So 3/8 is going to be the first line past the foot. So I'm going to take those pins out, and you're going to go slow because you've got curves you got to go on. So go slow, do a couple stitches, back stitch, and then just go take your time and sew slow so you can get a nice rounded curve around, keeping that edge, those cut edges on that first line. And you'll probably have to move that little strap around too. Back at my double pins. Alright, so my eye mask is sewn now. Trim my threads here. Alright, so now there's my eye mask. So now the next thing I want you to do is I'm going to have you go ahead and clip like every 1/2 inch here around this curve to the stitching, but don't cut the stitching. And the reason why we do that is when we turn the mask right side out, that curve will like release the tension that this has, and it'll make it have a nice curve. I'm doing this about every 1/2 inch here around this curve. And to the other side. That's good. I'm gonna, you can take where the hole is here. If you fold this back like that and finger press that, and then you do the other side to match and finger press that. That'll help when we turn, we want to put those raw edges in after we flip it. Okay, so we're gonna and then dig out all of your edges here. And then after you get the edges all dug out, you'll go to the iron and give it a good press. You'll notice I'm kind of swishing the fabric back and forth there. You don't want it to be tucked in there. You want it to have it be pulled out. Okay, so it's all undone. I'm gonna go press it really quickly. So I've already pressed everything. So now I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch all the way around. And I'm gonna start where the hole is. And my top stitch, once again, is gonna be the edge of that inside of that foot. So right here, make sure the pressed edge is right here on the inside. And I'm just gonna stitch all the way around. And I'm not gonna back stitch at the beginning because I'm gonna meet back up to it, and then I'll do the back stitch. So now I'm coming up onto that, and I knead it, take a couple back stitches, and there we go. And then trim everything. there's your eye mask.